We acknowledge and respect the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we are meeting upon here today. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of Aboriginal peoples to country. We also pay respects to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting and attending from other areas of South Australia present here. Okay. Hopefully by now, most people are familiar with navigation in Teams. I'll just check that I've actually allowed you to do emotions, and I haven't, so I'll just do that now. So if you would like to react, so I might ask you throughout the session to give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. So if you use the react button that's up the top there near the chat, and then you should be able to give a reaction. If you do put your hand up, just make sure you put it down. I can see a couple of people with their hand up. Did you have something to share, or you're just reacting? Just reacting, perfect. Okay, I won't talk too much more about this, only to let you know that the chat is always available after the meeting. So any links that I post in the chat while we're having the meeting, you'll be able to access after the meeting as well. I've got one tip. Sometimes I find, especially teachers, if you're joining us and you have only got one screen, it's tricky to follow what I'm showing you and do the forms yourself. So one handy tip is you can press the Windows key and either the right or the left button, and that will split your screen. So if you are trying to manage with one screen, that might be helpful. But as I said, I am recording, so you can always go back and watch the recording after. Now, there's some updates coming to forms. So today I'm actually going to use the new forms update. And you can access this if you go to the chat. I've put in a link there to how to access this. In a moment, I'll share my screen and I'll show you what the forms looks like if you access it through the Microsoft landing page. But there's some really cool updates that are being rolled out, and you can force those updates into your forms by going to this link. So that's something to be aware of. So some of the differences is at the moment there's a drop down here in the Education edition to choose between quiz and forms, and in the new version, which I'll be showing you, there's actually 2 buttons, which is really handy. And then there's also this import. So in the new version of forms, if you've got a PDF or a Word document, for example, it might be a quiz that you've had with your students for a long time, you can now do the import button and it will turn it into a form for you. So that's really cool. And then there's some other differences down here with the favourites, etc. Okay, so I might just go ahead and share my screen. Make sure I've got the right window open. And we get going. Okay, if you can just give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen, all right. Perfect, thank you.
Abigail,
yes,
looks like you haven't turned reactions on. So it's just only the react hand up emote that you can do.
I just did, but maybe it didn't stick. Thanks, Phil. Let's try again. Is that all? You know what I did? I didn't press save. Here we go. Thanks, Phil. Okay, so hopefully now people can give me a thumbs up that they can see my screen. Okay, so as I was saying, normally when we want to access forms, we come to Office. Forms is only online, so you can't access it as a desktop web app. It's a desktop app, sorry. It's only available online. So normally you come into Office, and then if it's not showing up down here, you can click on the 9 dots and then access it from here. However, as I said, with these new updates, the best way to currently access forms and to get all of those new features is by actually going to https://forms.office.com, and I put that link into the chat. Okay, so the great thing about forms is that it can be shared externally. So if you want parents or the wider community to be engaged with your site, you can do through the use of forms. You can share templates. So if you've got a form that you want to use across different classes, or a quiz that you want to use across different classes or with different colleagues, you can do that also with forms. You can collaborate and have multiple people working on the same form, and also forms can belong to a team so that all the people in that one team can get that data. So I'm just going to start by showing you some examples of some different forms and how they might be used in an educational context. And then we're going to dive into making a form, and there I hope you'll be able to follow along and create some forms as well. So this first example I have is a really simple form. It's a formative assessment, and this is a form that uses branching. So this type of quiz, is really good for supporting students if you've got lots of different learners in the classroom. So in this example here, I've got what's the time on the clock. If the student selects the wrong answer, because of the way the quiz is set up, it gives me some more information. So it's given me this. It's got a immersive reader built in, so the student can listen if they can't read. And then I can try again, and hopefully this time I get it right. So this is a really good way that you can use forms to support students with differentiated learning. This here, and I can see some hands up, is that because I accidentally didn't have reactions on, or do people have questions? If you do have a question, feel free to come off mute as well. Okay, so this example here is an example that might be shared externally. So this is one for grandparents, parents, and Special Friends Day. And here we've got some required questions with some asterisks, and then the parent can submit. Again, we've got some branching happening here. If the parent can help on the day, we've got some extra information that they can provide. If they can't, they don't have to answer that question. And this one here can be shared externally. Here's another example. So this one here is for an assignment submission. So another really good thing about forms is you can ask for people to upload files. Now, if you're sharing the form externally, people can't upload files there. But if it's an internal form, for example, you're asking students to submit work, you can get them to upload files here. So this is really useful if you want big files to be uploaded, such as a media, film, or something like that, or lots of photos. This is another example of how you might use forms. So this here is voting for student representatives. I've got a picture with the different candidates, and the students can choose which one they want. Oops. Let's go to the preview. And then again, I've got branching, so I've got different houses, And if I click on one house, then it will give me the options for that house, and the students don't need to see all those options. Fiona, did you have a question?
No, I didn't.
Okay, perfect. Okay. And then the last example is a form that's been created by a student or possibly. So in maths, for example, we ask students about data collection. So you can get students to create a form with their account. You can then get them to share it, and they can share it externally as well. And then they can use the data. Now, if I go back, I'm just going to show you the back end of some of the forms as well, because although we've seen the front end, it's really handy to see what happens when people actually put in responses. So let me just go in to the right one. Let's try again. Okay. So this here is a form that's got quite a lot of responses. Again, because I'm an owner of this form, I can see the back end, and then I can look at the responses. So this gives me quite a lot of data. I can see how many people have responded, how long it took people to respond, and this particular one is closed. I can then see some word clouds if I've asked people to type in responses. It produces lovely graphs for me, and these all change in real time as well. So if somebody completed this form right now, I would see a difference in that graph and that data there. It also gives me some bar graphs if it's a multiple choice question like that. And yeah, so it's really nice visually for students to see that data, and for you. If I want to as well, I can export that into Excel, so I can do more data manipulation. I can also go in and view the results as well. So if I want to go in and see a particular individual's results, I can do that and go through and see all the different people. So that's really nice about forms. Okay, so I've shown you some examples. I've shown you a little bit of the back end. So now we want to get started, and I want you guys to do some creating as we go along. So I sent out an email with the training summary earlier today. I've also popped it in the chat. So hopefully we'll be going through this, and hopefully you'll be able to follow along. So firstly, if you can go to that forms.office.com. So I'll pop that in again in the chat, just in case you haven't got it. And then we're going to get started. Okay, so we might start by creating a new form rather than a new quiz. So if you can click on new form, and then if you can just give me a thumbs up with the reactions, hopefully most people will be ready to go. Excellent, I can see lots of thumbs up. Just waiting on a couple of extra people. Okay, so hopefully we've all in here, we've got a blank form. First thing we want to do is give our form a title. So because this is a practice, I'm just going to call it a practice test or practice quiz. And then I can put in a description as well if I want. Okay, if I want to, I can insert a picture. So if I wanted to have some kind of visual prompt, I could do that here. And then when I want to add questions, I'm just going to click on the add new. And then I've got an option of different types of questions. So let's go through them all. So let's start with a choice. So here is multiple choice. So let's put it in a question. What's your favorite color? And I'm actually, whoops, if I can spell, I'm actually going to give people 2 options. So let's put in some options here. Now you'll notice that because it's using AI, it's already picked out some options here for me, so I don't have to type in everything. This might not always be the options that you want, but it is handy. Now, because I want people to tell me their colour or colours, I've got the option here of sliding that toggle for multiple answers. If I just wanted them to pick one answer, I make sure that's off. But in this case, I want multiple answers, and you can see these have changed to checkboxes now. Now, if I want people to definitely respond to this, I can click that, and then this will be a required question. Got some other options here, so I can shuffle them. If I want to, I can add a subtitle. So if I click on subtitle, I can add a description. So it might be, you can pick more than one if you would like. Okay. Cindy, did you have a question? Otherwise, I might just mute you again. So that's our first option, which is the multiple choice. Okay, let's add new. And this time we're going to add a text. And here we've got, again, some options. So if it's just a short question, please type your name. We might just want it as one line, but if it's a long question, so it might be, please type your name and address. That gives people more space to answer. Again, I can choose whether it's required or not. And I can add an image as well if I'd like to support that question. Now, if I've decided that this is actually the first question in here, because it makes sense, I can move it up as well with this arrow. Okay, and then I'm going to click on the bottom one to add a new one. So we've done text, we've done multiple choice. The next one is rating. So let's again put in a question. How is your day going? And here it automatically chooses stars, but you could put numbers in there if you want. And you can also increase that. So you can have it. Doesn't like my mouse. Let's try again. You can have it up to 10, I think. Trouble with making your mouse big. It's not liking it. And again, you can select required or not. Okay. Now, after we've done rating, you can also do a date one. So this is really useful, especially if you want people to say what day they could help, for example, or a day that they're available for some kind of event. So let's put in this, your best date. And again, on this one, I can do required or not. And I can just add branching, which we're going to after. Now, you might think we've exhausted all the options, but if I click on that little arrow down, I've got some more options as well. So I've got ranking, which allows people to move the options around. So what is your favorite food? Pasta, pizza, potatoes, and then we've got like it. So that's where you've got the rows. What is the weather going to be like? Okay, let's put in Tuesday, sunny. Now, if I don't want all those options, I can delete. Let's put in rainy. Okay. So, and if I want to add more, I can add more in there as well. And again, if I click back, I can make that required. And if I want that question before that one, again, I can use the up arrow or the down arrow to move that question around. Okay, so the last one, oh, sorry, there's two more. So we've got upload file. So this one can only be used if you select that you want to share the form only with people within the department. So that's students or employees. So we can do that one. Please upload your photo. And then we can select how many files they want to add. And we can also select the file limit. Okay, so the last one is the Net Promoter Score. So that one gives questions a bit of a weighting. So if you're going to use this question, it would be worth having a bit of a search on the internet to understand what the scores are about. And let's put in another question. How is term 3 going? Oh, that's not a good one because it's not like, oh, yes, we can change that. How is term 3 going? Not great. Fantastic. Okay, and then people can rank them. Now, if I want to see what this is going to look like to people that are going to fill in the form, I've got this preview here. So if I click on preview, I can see what it will look like, and I can actually answer some of the questions as well. So this is the one where I can move them around. And then this is the one where I have to rate all of them. And I've selected required for that. So if I try and press submit now, it won't let me submit. Okay, but it's starting to look good, but I want to change it up a bit. So let's go back. And I think now we're actually into adding some branching. So the test, or the practice test I showed you, let's just go to that, was the telling time, where you could use this in a formative situation to add. But there was also some branching in this one where we wanted parents to include information or extra information. So for example, here, if I wanted everyone that chose blue, for example, to tell me whether they liked dark blue or light blue, I can do that. So I'm going to go back into the question by clicking on it. And then here, I want to click on Add Branching. Now this opens it in a different window. You see it says back, and we've got branching options here. So, or maybe if they select blue, I want them to go to this question, but if they don't, they can go to the next. So let's click on blue. Let's click on. This isn't a good example because remember I said that they could click multiple. So that one's not going to work. So let's go back. And instead of multiple answers, let's choose that they have to pick one. And now let's try and add our branching. And then we can select if they want blue, that they go to question 3. Otherwise, they can go, they go to question 4. Otherwise, they can go to the next one, which is question 3. So that's branching. And then we can click back to go into our questions again. Anybody got any questions so far? You can give me a thumbs up if you're following along okay. Thank you. Perfect. Okay, so I've done all my questions, but it looks a bit dull. So now I'm going to go in and make it look a little bit prettier. So I can do that by clicking on Theme. So it doesn't always, but it might come up with some ideas here. It depends what you called your quiz as to whether it comes up with some ideas. It always gives you these options down here. So if I clicked on that one, for example, it's now going to have that as a background. But I can also add a theme. So I could add my own picture if I wanted, but also I can choose my own colours. So if I had a particular colour that was my school colour, I could go in and choose that. So I'm just going to put in another URL for you in the chat, because this is quite a handy URL. This is for an image picker or a colour picker or an image. So if I've got an image of my school, for example, I could upload that by clicking on Use Image, and then it gives me the hex code for that colour. So if I press copy here and go back into my quiz and paste, hopefully, doesn't seem to have worked. Let's try again. Then it's going to use that as the theme. So that's quite handy that you can customize your theme. However, let's use one that they've suggested for this particular one. Okay, so that's looking a bit nicer. I'm going to preview it again. So that's that preview button there. And that's what it's going to look like on a computer. But I know if I'm sending this out to parents, for example, that most parents might look at it on a mobile. So I can also click on the mobile view to see what it's going to look like on a mobile. So you can see on a mobile, it's still got that colouring, but it doesn't have that picture. And then I can click back on computer to see that again, and then back to work on my quiz again. Okay, so if you are following along with that training summary, I'm now up to number 13, which is sharing the form. So this button here allows you to share the form, and it's called Collect Responses. So here, first of all, I can select who I want to be able to respond. Now I'm just going to go back into my form first, and I'm going to delete this question here because I know the only people within the department can answer this. So let's just delete that one, and then it will allow me to share it with more people. So I'm going to collect responses, and then I've got this option here. So anyone can respond. That means I can share that with families, I can share that with the wider community. Only people in my organisation can respond. That means I can share it with employees of the department and with students. And then the last one, specific people in my, let's try again. Specific people in my organisation can respond. This might be if you've created a form, for example, if I'm going on a training with other people in my team, I need to know about dietary requirements or what sessions they'd like to attend. I might complete a quick form for them and send that link out. In that case, I don't want everyone to be able to respond. I just put in the specific people that I want to complete the form. Okay, so once I've decided who is going to complete the form, then I've got some options here. So I can get the link. This is an invitation. So when I click that, it gives me some text that I can write, and then I can put in email addresses. If I click on that one, it's going to open it up in an email in my Outlook, if I've got Outlook set up on my computer. Can we use DL addresses for gathering responses? Irene, that's a good question, and I'm not sure. If it's a school's address, it might, but that's something I'll investigate, and I will get back to you. That's okay. There's also the QR code. So QR codes are really popular at the moment. So when you click on that, you can download a QR code. And the last one is embed. So that might be if you've got a newsletter that's in Sway, for example, you might want to embed a form in that. So I want to copy that, and then I can embed it in something like a Sway. Okay. Now, the other thing I've got here is these 3 dots. So when I click on there, I've got some other options. So collaborate or duplicate. So if I want other people to work on the same form, say I'm collaborating with a colleague, we're creating a quiz for our 9th grade maths classes, I might want to get a link to view and edit, and then send that to that particular colleague, and they'll be able to edit that form. I can also, though, share as a template. So if I've created this great form, it's all finished, and I want to make sure that my colleagues can use the same thing, but they don't need to do any edits. I can click on Get Link to Duplicate, copy that, and then if I put it in here, you'll see that the person that opens that link now gets that button called Duplicated, and then that will appear in their own forms. So that's a really good way of sharing a form with colleagues. It might even be colleagues outside of your school as well. Okay. So let's collaborate or duplicate. Then we've got settings. So settings gives me a bit more, gives me some more options for how people can respond. So if I want the form to be anonymous, I can click on or untick that, and then the people in my organisation, it won't record the name. If that's ticked, if I go into this form or any form I go into, let's just go to preview. You see how it says my name here? Hi, Abigail. That is, if I complete this form now, I know that it's collecting my data around my email address. But if the person that's created the form has gone into those 3 dots and settings and unticked that, let's go into preview now, and you'll see it doesn't have my name anymore. So if you've been sent a link to a form and it says it's anonymous, but you see your name there, it isn't. But if you don't see your name there, it's pretty well anonymous. Okay, 3 dots and settings again. Let's record name. 1 response per person. So if I only want people to be able to fill it in once, I can tick that box. I've also got some options here. So I can set a start date. I can set an end date, and then people won't be able to submit the form after that end date. I can also shuffle the questions. I can show a progress bar. So if it's a really long form that's multiple pages, I might want to use that. And then I can also customize what people get when they submit the form. So you might want to put an email address in here that people can use to contact you, for example. And then allow receipt of responses after submission and get email notification for each response. Now, if it's a form that is going to be used a lot, you don't want to be ticking that because you get lots of emails. But if it's a form that you want to know when people have filled it out, you might want to tick those options there. Now, one thing I forgot to mention was about sections. So I'll just go back and show you those before we move on. So when you click Add New, there's also the option to do a section. Now a new section will open up as a new page in the form, and you might want to do this if you've got a really long form. So this section might be about your pets, whereas the section above was about you. And when I add a new question here, have you got pets? Yes, no, maybe. When I go to preview, you'll see I've got that first page with my branching. And then when I click next, it won't let me do it because I haven't filled in all the required questions. So let's do that quickly. When I click next now, it goes to that second page. So that's really handy if you want to do sections. Okay, so we've got these bits there. So now I think we're up to having a look at the responses. Anybody got any questions so far? You just give me a thumbs up if you're following along okay. Fiona, can we use a class form, user form from Microsoft, use a class from Microsoft Teams? Okay, so if I go back to my forms homepage, you'll see we've got my forms, which are forms that I've made, but we've also got groups. So underneath in the My Groups, all the teams that you're a part of will appear here. So if I click on one of those, I can actually do a new group quiz or a new group form from within those. If I do a new group form here, test. Okay, and then go back to forms. If I go back into that group again, if I can find it, test class, that test form is going to live there. However, that means that all the people who are in this test class will be able to access the responses here as well. So if you're wanting students to fill out a form because they're part of a class team, then it's best off if I go into that class, test class, if you either use assignments to get them to do that to do that form, or you post a new conversation and we get the link for that form. So let's go back into my forms for a moment. And I'll do collect responses. I'll copy that. I'll go back into my class team. And I'm just going to paste that in. Please complete. Oops, it doesn't like that. Let's change it to a short. Let's type up. Yeah. So now if students click on that one there, it should take them to that form. One other way you can post it to a class team is up the top. So if it's a form that you're going to be asking students to fill out regularly, for example, if it's a wellbeing form and you keep the same form and you just want to collect lots of responses, you could add it up the top as a tab as well. And my team is going really slow, so you can add it forms at the top there or as a website. Okay, so right, so we're back into responses. This is closed. And we've got no responses. So I think I showed you already, but we just go back into this one as well. So we've got few results. If I go in there, if I don't want that person's response, I can go in and delete that response. So if I've got someone that's filled it out twice, I can always go in and delete. I can also print responses, and that's going to generate a PDF with the responses from that particular person. If I want to see all the responses, I've got those 3 dots there, and I can do a print summary. So this one here is going to give me the summary like I can see on that page with all those nice graphs. If I do open in Excel, that will download the file. And then I could save that, and then I can use that data as well. I can also share a summary link. So I might have created a form. I don't want to give people access to change the form, but I do want to share, or them to share and see the results. So if I want that, I can go and share a summary link. and copy that and send that to people that I want to be able to see the end result, but not be able to change the form. Okay. So that's forms. And now we'll go in and show you a little bit about the quizzes. So quizzes are really exciting if you're a teacher. So if we go back to that forms homepage, and if you ever see the word forms and you click on that, that should bring you back to that homepage. And now we're going to click on new quiz. And add. Now, when I do this one, as well as giving me options, I've got these ticks here. So if it's a question that is a right or wrong question in the test, I can show which answer is correct. I can also add a comment. So if someone said no to this, I might say, check outside. Or something like that. So I can give students some extra information if I'd like to, by clicking on that comment. Also, if they've selected the right answer as well. I can also add some points. So if I wanted to make that question out of 10, students would get 10 points for answering that. Again, I've got that multiple answers question, and I can make it a card if I'd like to. So I've got the same options in here. Let's do another question. Let's do another multiple choice one though, because I've also got here something called math. So math, which is our maths, actually is pretty cool. So if I do 5x plus 3 equals y, it should give me, here we go, let's try again. Please solve this. And then 5x plus 3 equals y. It's going to give me, or it should give me, some questions, or some suggestions. So it's given me these ones. I can do add all, and it's automatically given me the right answer as well. So this is a really good time saver if you're a maths teacher or a physics teacher and you want to use forms to give your questions. You can also, if you do text, you can also add functions in there. So you've got access to all those different symbols that you might use if you're doing maths questions. Okay, and then you've got the same collect responses. Now, if you're doing it for students, for example, I would make sure that in the settings that you get the record name. Make sure as well that you do the only people in my organisation can respond, especially if you're doing this as part of an assignment. The reason I say this is I was working with one teacher. They had students from different schools joining their class, and some students didn't know their @school's email, so they changed it to anyone can respond. And then in their class team, they lost all the marks for that particular quiz. So if you are using it with assignments in teams, make sure you click only people in my organisation can respond. Okay, so got maths and the marks as well. So again, with this one, if I go to preview and if I click yes for there, and submit, when I go back and go to response, when I go to open in Excel, it's downloaded it and it should show me the marks as well when it opens, and I can see there in my grades as well. So that's quite handy in terms of saving time. Okay. So here I've got my ID, I've got my start time, I've got how many points, and my answers as well. So again, that's quite handy. Right, so the last bit, I'm just going to show you some examples of how you might want to extend the use of forms. So for example, so again, let's go into this one. So for example, this is our training certificate that we use as with our, my presenting thing is not cooperating. So this is a training certificate that I'll send you a link to afterwards. And because we don't want to go in and after everyone's submitted a response, manually send them out a certificate, what we've done is we've gone in and created a flow in something called Power Automate. So you can see here, this is training certificate, and this certificate is linked to that training certificate form. So instead of me manually doing something when someone's submitted a form, I can combine forms with something like Power Automate and automate that process. The other thing is that you might not want to export an Excel spreadsheet each time someone submits a response. So you can also get the responses to your form, and this is the same form, put into a SharePoint list. And then it's easy to review all the time and organise. So again, there's some ways that you can extend forms. We've got some videos, so I'll just send you some links on the forms, using forms with SharePoints and pushing responses to SharePoints in the chat. They're just something to think about if you are wanting to extend the use of forms. Okay, any other questions around forms? Because if not, I might just move on to showing or talking about some of the other resources that you can access. Feel free to come off mute if you do have a question. Okay, so lastly, this here is our team's YouTube channel. So in here, we've got a whole lot of tutorials that are specific to forms. So I'll just copy that link and put it in the chat. And if there's something around forms that you want as a video made on as well, feel free to contact our team and we can create a video for you as well. Another place where you can go and do some self-learning is the Microsoft Educator Centre. So this used to be education.microsoft.com, and this year in April it moved over to Microsoft Learn. So if you did have an account on the previous version of Microsoft, you'll need to create another account on this one, and then you can link your profiles. But in the Educator Centre, again, in the professional development, if I go browse all, if I put in forms, it gives me a whole lot of links to using forms that are useful for teachers. So that's a really good place to extend your knowledge around forms as well. Okay, and it looks like we finished a tiny bit earlier. So I've got a couple more links to put in. So the first one is our team's email. So if you've got any questions, feel free to send us an email. The other one here is a link to our training and feedback form. So we really appreciate if you can take some time to fill that in. It doesn't take very long, but we do read your comments and that helps us improve our training in the future. So that one would be really great, and that will generate a certificate for you as well. And I think that's about it. The last one is our team has a newsletter. So if you'd like to subscribe to that newsletter as well and find out about what's going on with our team and different trainings that we support, you can subscribe to that as well using a Microsoft form. So feel free to come off mute and ask any questions that you have. I'm happy to hang around for a little bit longer. Otherwise, thank you very much for attending the session, and I hope you found something useful.